I've just had the opportunity to sit down with my friend Andy Katz. Andy, thank you for taking some time now after the workshop.
Thank you. Pleasure to see you again, my friend.
And come out here. Andy just did a program and his photography, and I've known Andy for a lot of years. I've been very fortunate, and we bump into each other at different events and different times. Andy does some remarkable photography, number one, landscape work, but specifically focused in many cases with wineries, wine country, and different things like that. So I asked Andy to sit down and talk a little bit about his history, how he got into it. Like a lot of photographers and a lot of the stories we've been hearing, he was kind of a dead broke photographer at one time, and it seems that has to be sort of the process of getting where we're going. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Andy. We'll hear a little bit about things. We'll take a look at some of his photography. He's made some cool books, and if you get a chance, check it out. His website will be listed below, and also, by the way, if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe, and if you hit that little ding-dong bell, then you'll be notified when we have more cool videos up online. But Andy, tell me a little bit about this past. You were in your program talking about how you were traveling through Europe, was it, and other places where you hardly had, $10, $15 a day.
Well, that was actually when I was, it was like 20 years old. I got sponsored to photograph a project on children around the world. And I don't know exactly how much I was given to do it, but it wasn't a hell of a lot. I got one of those tickets that went around the world.
A rail ticket or something like that?
No, it was a flight, and you could go anywhere you want, but you couldn't go back. So you could go up and down. So I didn't even know where the hell I was going to go. So I started traveling, and I think I was telling you that when I was in Indonesia, I was staying at a place for $3 a night, and one was available for $2 a night, and I said, "Oh, I'm moving." So I moved my crap for $1 a night. But it was, it was an amazing experience, and I traveled with my folks quite a bit. They were really wonderful travelers, and but that one year, by traveling by myself, just got the bug in me. From that point on, that I was obsessed.
So the photography bit at that time.
Well, the photography, I knew I was going to be a photographer when I was 8 years old. My dad brought home a book on Joseph Karsh, Portraits of Greatness. Amazing photographer. And I looked at it, and I'm looking at this book, and like a light bulb went off, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. And from that point on, there was never any time in my life that I thought I was going to do anything but photography.
So, and you've been very fortunate. Everybody asks these days, can you still make a living at photography? How do you make a living at photography? And of course, a lot of what we've been hearing from some of the young photographers here at the Sony Kendo event, it's a different time. It's not as easy as it used to be, but tell me a little bit about your career and how you've gone up to where you've been and so forth.
Well, I've been really lucky. And
you say that a lot in your presentation.
I do,
Luck is part of that ingredient.
But the harder you work, the luckier you get. So I've always really worked hard on making this happen, because this is the only thing I know how to do. If I didn't do this, I don't know what the hell I'd be doing. And I've always had a passion for it. I loved it. From the beginning. So, I started, I went to Art Center in Los Angeles. I dropped out because it was getting expensive. And then I moved to Boulder, Colorado, and found a place and met up with a bunch of 2 other commercial photographers, and we were doing like head skis and Hansen boots, Colorado-y type of things. And then any high-tech thing, be a black box with a red light and, make it look pretty, and anything that came my way, portraits, anything just to pay the bills, which barely happened. And then at one point, even while doing the commercial work, anytime I had money, I'd find a cheap flight somewhere, go travel, shoot, come back. One time I think I was telling you that I hadn't traveled in so long, I sold my car, my old Subaru, left and came back. I didn't have a friggin' car to ride. So. And then there was a singer named Dan Fogelberg, and at the time was a very popular singer, and he lived in Colorado, and he saw my work, and he said, let's get together and shoot some pictures. We became very good friends. He died, unfortunately, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I don't know. And so I started getting into the music business, not just by luck. And so I did like 7 of his album covers, and he turned me on to friends. I did other covers. So then I decided, well, I'm kind of in the music business. I moved to LA, opened up a studio, lived there for a year, and when and I had a blast. I was having a really good time. But then they said, okay, you got to sign your contract for the next year, and I went, wait a second, I'd much rather live in Boulder than Los Angeles. I went back to Boulder. Lived in Sonoma County, Healdsburg, in wine country for 10 years because I was pretty involved in photographing wine. And then I left there, and then I moved to New York, which was 7 years ago. Then from New York, I just moved back to San Francisco.
Part of what you do is some books, and maybe you want to show us a couple of them. You had talked about New Zealand, and Andy had a chance to spend some time in South Island. You did
North and South.
North and South Island, New
North
Zealand.
Island's gorgeous.
And this is a beautiful book, and anybody that has never been to New Zealand, you should get this book, and anybody that's been to New Zealand should own it because there's another magical place. That whole country. I don't. People say, "Well, tell me about New Zealand." I said, I don't even know if I can use words that describe my experiences there. It's just a land of beauty, a land of magic.
Yeah.
It's no wonder all the Hobbit movies were photographed there.
Exactly.
There's beautiful lakes. There's Milford Sound. I mean, just incredible mountains.
Yeah.
Wow, what a country.
Yeah. No, it's stunning. I would rent a. The problem with New Zealand, as you know, is unless you're in Auckland, you it's like 6:30. If you get to a restaurant at 7 o'clock, it's closing down. So I would rent like these campers, which was great because I had my wine in the campers because they're making great wine in New Zealand.
Don't travel without the wine.
And a necessity.
Photography with fine wine. There's nothing like it.
So anyway, so I would just go and I'd find a place to shoot at sunset, and I'd know in the morning when the sun rises, I'd just go for a little hike and then get back in my little camper and go to the next. It was so much fun. I loved every second of it.
The life of a landscape photographer, we live odd hours, don't we?
Odd hours.
So, in your talk you were saying, I get up, and of course we don't sleep if we're landscape photographers, so it's kind of a prerequisite. But you get up early and you go to the spot, and by 9 o'clock or so, depending on the sunrise, you're done. You have your coffee and breakfast, and then you can go shopping or hanging out.
Do whatever you want during the day.
And I know when I travel with my wife, she never really wants to get up for the sunrise. I don't know
what the
why.
hell is that? She doesn't like to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I hate it so much that when the alarm goes off, the first thought that goes to my mind: this can't be for me.
I know.
This is for someone else.
I was with Jeff Shuey once, and he always wanted to have his coffee, and I forgot to make the hot water, and he had the Vivia coffee packs.
Oh yeah.
And he was so desperate. He
Oh my God! At least he didn't snort it.
Oh, he did, but it was like, there's photographers. If I could invent a way to make a portable coffee maker for landscape photographers, it would be. Maybe we could go on Kickstarter.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then we find that the other time of day where we find most of the good photography is in the evening.
Yeah, exactly.
And your books that you have just show such beautiful, golden long light in so many cases and so forth.
Yeah. So we were talking about before that, being a landscape photographer, it's nice to have skill, but you got to have luck with you too. I mean, you could wake up, be in the perfect spot, and the sky isn't doing anything, and you just have to come back. Or you can get there first time and the sky is magnificent. It's like bingo.
Well, I have found places in my travels where, and Stockness, Iceland is one of those.
Yeah.
It's a big mountain range, and there's this one spot you can go, and every year, and I've been going there since pretty much 2004, sometimes several times a year. And I keep going back to that one spot, and one time out of almost a dozen times, it was in the winter, 60-mile-an-hour winds blowing, colder than witches. It was just cold, windy. But the clouds were coming over Stockness, and I got out there, found the right spot. Couldn't even feel my fingers. Did a pano with the phase 1, 9 or 10 stitches of the shot. Got back in the van, and I couldn't get warm for like an hour. But the picture is just, so it is, number one, luck, and sometimes you just got to go back and back and back because it's got a potential.
Right.
And I know you've done that same trick.
And perseverance.
Perseverance,
yeah. I mean, if you were like, I'm cold, I'm out of here, which some photographers would do.
So let's talk a little bit about gear for a minute. Your history with gear. You're obviously now shooting with the Sony mirrorless, and we'll come to that in a second. But what did you start with, and how did you get to the point where you decided mirrorless was the way to go?
The first camera I had for serious was a Nikon F. I mean, I had an Argus twin lens.
Like the FTN with the plug-in, or the Nikon F?
I had the FTN.
the FTN with
Oh,
the
yeah.
plug-in,
Oh, of
you know,
course,
the
yeah.
meter in
Yeah,
the head,
exactly.
and you're
With the
matching
red
with the
dot.
lens.
Oh, of course,
my
of
God.
course, yeah.
What a
Great
day those!
camera.
Oh yeah,
Great
God, they were
camera. And
great.
then you had Tri-X, and you had the
We had film.
Panatomic X, you had film. You had to decide, am I in a colorful mood or a black and white mood? Oh my
High
God.
ISO, low ISO.
Yeah.
Well, I push it in AccuFine and get there. We used to have noise like at 800 ISO.
Oh, 800 is, yeah.
We got noisy at 800
Yeah,
ISO on
it
film.
did. It did. Yeah.
But we strive for that sometimes. That was part of the whole thing. So
Yeah.
you moved for and Nikon, which was just everybody was shooting a lot of Nikon.
Pretty
at the time.
much,
Canon
yeah.
wasn't really even a known brand almost.
Yeah,
There.
yeah.
So-
And then I had, the Leica rangefinders, the bulletproof cameras that you'd have with you, and the first digital camera that I bought, I wasn't going to go digital until I found a camera that I thought shot better than film. And when Canon 1DS Mark II came out, I looked at the files and I went, this is better than film. So I bought the 1DS Mark II right before I did the New Zealand book. I mean, I just bought this camera and was on my way to New Zealand a couple of days later, and I found the transition to be, believe it, I thought it was very simple. Yeah. Because it's still light, f-stop, shutters, it's the same stuff. It's just you're using a different media. And
But there's after stuff you have to do now too. You know?
there is, and I don't do that much. I don't even open Photoshop. I haven't opened Photoshop forever.
What do you shoot, JPEG?
No, I'm shooting RAW.
Oh, thank God.
But yeah, I'm not that stupid. But I'm doing everything in Lightroom or Phase 1. Yeah, and I don't, I'm not altering very much.
So now you went from the Canon and stayed there for a while.
I said that. Well, then Sony contacted me, and they said, "Would you be interested in representing our camera?" And I said, "Well, can you send me a camera?" So they sent me the 900 with a 24 to 70 Zeiss 2.8 lens, and like you, I tested them, and I went, "Yeah, definitely, I'll take this camera." And that was, they couldn't sell any of them, but that was a really good camera.
It was like the candle in the window kind of thing. You knew something was coming, and they were onto something at that point.
Right. And then they were doing the SLRs, and then all of a sudden they came out with this mirrorless, which I think you appreciate like I do. Is I hate carrying heavy equipment. I mean, when I was shooting, the other thing I was shooting when I was shooting film was Mamiya stuff. Mamiya 7, I did
wasn't that a
ads
beautiful camera?
Gorgeous camera.
Oh,
they used my images for ads for Mamiya 7. And then the RZ67, which weighed as much as a truck.
I know, but it actually looked like a tank the way it was.
Yeah.
Like a little pop-up.
And you know what else I used? This will bring you back. Remember the Pentax 6x7?
Oh, the big one with the wooden handle? And I had one of those. It was like a gigantic 35 millimeters hormones or something.
And that thing could start an avalanche. Remember that mirror would come down and would shake the floor.
I know, it was such a beautiful camera.
Yeah.
6x7 image.
6x7, phenomenal. So anyway, going back to the mirrorless, now I've got, I'm using the A7R III. The images, I'll put those images against, I shouldn't say this, but I'll put those against 4x5 images. They're friggin' incredible.
Yeah, that's the Sony file is really tremendous.
Yeah.
And I think what gets me with that sensor, and I use the same camera, is that what I like now in my landscape work and any photography, even now the portrait work, like you're wearing a lot of dark right now, and if you do a proper exposure, and then you can use the post processing, and you can bring back the shadows. And let's just say we take a big field of grapes. We then can just open up those shadows to bring in the minutest detail.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, now you've got an image where you begin to explore it, because you've got everything looks great, but you also have the subtleties.
Right.
And to me, sometimes photography has got to be about the subtle parts of the image.
Sure, absolutely.
And I really believe, having these cameras with this wide dynamic range,
Yeah.
and many of them are doing it this day. We happen to be working, on the Sony side, a lot because of their sensors and their dynamic range built into the sensors and so forth. But that's when it changes.
Yeah.
When you find things in your image you didn't know you had.
Right.
Just pulling a slider.
Yeah.
And then make the print or publish it or go to whatever media you want. As long as it's out there, changes it, doesn't it?
So the other thing about the camera is, other than landscapes, but when you're shooting people, if you have that camera with a 35 small lens, it's not intimidating. Where you have one of the SLRs with a 70 to 200, you've got like a cannon you're going up to people with. This is a tiny little camera.
It's pretty small when you leave it at that, and their new lenses, these G Master lenses, are just so sweet.
Spectacular.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean DxO, which is, I mean, you agree with their. I mean, it's
well, I
pretty
use them. I mean, I agree with them, but to me, you can have all the tests you want. It's the use, getting out and using it, and if it performs, as you expect because of the test, then you're just astounded. And I'm just, those G Master lenses.
They're incredible.
And I'm in love with the 100 to 400. I'm going to do a little short take video on that. With that, with the 1.4, that has taken my landscape photography where I can do the big landscape, and then I throw that lens on there and I start exploring the picture in the picture.
Yeah.
And boy, I'm into something new. It's pretty damn good. So I'm having a lot of fun with it.
I used that 100 to 400 for the A mount lens, and for Photo Plus, it was a picture of an Indian man walking. For Photo Plus, they printed the thing 5 stories high. I mean, and I didn't even know that. Sony surprised me. So the taxi driver dropped me off. I went, holy shit. Those are my photos. And the taxi driver goes, oh, no, they're not. No, I swear, those are my photos. But I've blown that up. The older version, which is not as good, that's a phenomenal lens.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Well, they're all phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we sat with the Sony executives yesterday, and I told a story about sitting with the CEO of Sony a few years ago, and they are on a mission. And
well, you predicted it 2 years ago.
I wrote an article called "If I Was a Betting Man."
Yeah.
So it's I think they're not quite there yet, but you can.
They're ahead of anybody else.
They're working towards it. And when they put on an event like this, where they bring so many interesting and well-known photographers together. Not only where you can teach, but you collaborate. We get a chance to sit down, drink wine, drink beer, party a little bit. But
it's a battery charger.
There is so much sharing going on. What a concept!
I love it. Yeah.
So it's so cool to be part of this. It was great to meet you and say, hey, you want to sit down and do a video?
Of course. So you and I talk, and that's going to be difficult. Who's going to shut each other up?
I know. Blabber away. Anyway, we could go on and on. I want to show off a couple more of your books, and then what we'll do is we're going to list where Andy's books are available down below, and also in the Luminous article. So if you'd like to purchase these books, you can. But these are really good. This new one of yours, The Club of Nine. Tell me a little bit about this. This is a great looking book.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful photography inside it. I mean, incredible. So what was all this all about?
Well, the Club of Nine, I've done a lot of books on wine, and the Club of Nine is in France, in Bordeaux. They have something called the First Growth. And these are, about these wines. These are wines that are $1,000 a bottle, $2,000 a bottle. So I decided that I wanted to get my books in the hands of millionaires and billionaires. Because
good
you don't make money on books, to be honest. It's a good PR thing, but to sell prints, and that's kind of how I make most of my living, is selling prints. So I did a book. I had to talk to all the wineries. Because these people don't want publicity. They're doing just fine without it. They kind of have a little air about them. So I brought my portfolio. I presented to all 9 of my portfolio. They said, yeah, we're in, and I produced this book. But basically, it's 9 of the most famous wineries in Bordeaux. The most famous winery in the world is Aperture and Devil Proof. You know that. Okay, just want to make sure.
Well, I don't. Every time I sit with you, you remind me of who they are.
That's my label.
And lastly, but not least, is your book, Sonoma, which is just another gorgeous book. These are kind of coffee table books. I have one of your books on my coffee table.
Oh, thank you, my friend.
Art Wolf and a few other books.
Thank you.
Because
I'm honored.
I love wine and always have.
Yeah.
I'm not a fine connoisseur of it, but it's just the geometry and some of the beautiful things you've photographed in this area is really great. What I'd love to do sometime, and it's been great sitting with you for a few minutes. Come and visit with you. Go out and shoot.
I love that.
I want to go, and you make prints too. You're a good printmaker. And printmaking is something I really believe in. I'm finding photography is drifting away from the print. We're in a swipe kind of society today, and to me, the print has always been the end result.
Just looking at that, that's
and the tactile feel of holding a picture in your hand, being able to look
backlit.
At it. So anyway, I'd love to come out and visit with you sometime and do that. You're not that far away, and we'll drink some wine and drink some coffee and get up early.
Yeah, exactly, and stay up late.
So you'll find all the information about Andy's website down below. Don't forget, if you down below, all the information is always below. Why does everybody always say that? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you haven't visited before, hit the bell button so we can notify you of more. Visit the Luminous-Landscape, where not only do we have the videos, but there's some text and some more information about Andy and some of his photography. So Andy, I want to say thank you very much.
Thanks, my friend. It was
Appreciate
a pleasure.
you.
Always great to see you, my friend.
That is. And thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
I'll see you on the Luminous-Landscape.